Welcome to the Stronger Together podcast. This is Henry Tosh. Today I'm talking to Jake Downs of Donut Barbell. Now, I've known Jake as a friend, coach and lifter for many years, and in this episode we're pulling back the curtain on what really works for competitive powerlifters, the programming principles, mental approaches and the technical nuances that can take your totals to the next level. We'll be sharing our unfiltered thoughts on what's working and what's not in strength training today. So whether you're preparing for your first meet or you're a seasoned competitor looking to break through plateaus, today's conversation offers practical takeaways you can implement immediately. So sit back and let us take the wheel for a bit. And without further ado, I give you Jake Downs. What do you think about lifters whinging about refereeing calls in a comp?
I have quite a few strong opinions on it. For the most part, people that do whinge about it haven't refereed themselves or are not referees. And I think probably they need to just change their training standards. And even at the highest level, like people will argue about inconsistencies, but then if you look at people who are like multiple time champions, why have they never fallen foul to inconsistencies at Worlds? Why has someone never made it to Euros or made it to Worlds but then bombed twice because of inconsistencies from reffing? Probably haven't, because they probably trained to good enough standards. So there needs to be more of an emphasis on looking inward rather than...
You need to give some margin for error, don't you? Because you can't just, even if, so I remember at a comp, one of our comps we run here, and it was a qualifier, so an inexperienced lifter, and his mate came up to me with a mobile phone saying, look, and he slowed it down, and he said, look, does that look depth to you? I was like, mate, we don't have VAR in powerlifting. I said, look, and he said, but it was exactly the same depth as the one before, which got passed. And I said, first of all, there's no way you can know that. There's no way you can know that was exactly the same depth.
Rewind and check the previous one.
And I said, and also, refs are human. So even if they were exactly the same,
yeah,
you're doing it with human eye, you're doing it in real time until we bring in like AI cameras to pick up depth, which might happen at some stage if it all gets cheap enough.
And also that's why we have 3.
Yeah.
Like that's why you only need to get a 2-to-1. And more often than not, those situations happen it happens when there isn't a jury.
Yeah. And let's be honest, up until maybe 2 years ago, the jury at a lot of comps may as well have not been there.
Yes. Yeah.
They weren't really taking an active part.
Yeah. And you could argue sometimes that the jury's a bit overactive, but
Malta. That was insane, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No one even bothered going to the jury because they thought, well, they're overturning half the stuff here, so...
Yeah, they definitely can be overactive because there has to be... Sometimes they do forget the benefit of the doubt to the lifter. But certainly if you're lifting at a divisional level, you don't need to be whinging about the referees' inconsistencies. And then even at national level, I still find like I get really frustrated listening to it. And I think, could you actually have just squatted a bit deeper?
Yeah. Or
locked your elbows out on bench? Not pointing any fingers.
Dan Clark. No. Yeah. No, I completely agree. If you're going to miss calls at a divisional, you're not going to get them when the standard goes higher.
No.
It's only getting tougher as you go up that ladder.
Yeah, and that's the other thing as well. People think that the refereeing gets like more strict as you go up. It's not that it gets more strict; it's that they give you less leeway.
Yeah,
like it's the same level of strictness. They're still all looking for the same thing, whether it's a divisional or Worlds. It's just that a divisional they might give you we'll give you a little bit more leeway.
Yeah.
So if you get in that little bit of leeway and then you still think it's inconsistent, well, then you definitely need to take a little look.
As the stakes get higher, there is less that the referee can do for you because each decision is therefore more and more important.
Yeah.
And if you've got someone who's at a novice competition and their knees aren't fully locked necessarily before they start squatting, you're probably going to let them have their opener and say, look, just next time on the next one, just straighten up because I won't give that to you
Just
again.
sort this out, yeah.
No one's going to have a meltdown about that. It's just the reality is if someone's first ever comp, it's not a terrible crime and it's probably something they can cut out quite easily.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing for people to know as well, is you can go and ask for feedback.
100%.
Even if you got one red.
You should do. And often if you just look over at the ref, they'll gesture.
Yeah.
As to say what it was. You don't have to always storm over straight up into their face and say, what was that for? There's a right way to do it. What do you think? So obviously we're recording this the day before Sheffield, where you and I are going to be going and coaching Bobby. Now I remember listening to a podcast that Eric Helms did after the first Sheffield, and he was handling Jessica Bittner. And he went and tried to overturn another lifter's good lift. And his opinion was, look, I'm there to represent my lifter. I'm allowed to go and do that. I don't have a problem with it. My personal opinion is, just because something is allowed doesn't mean I think it's okay. And I personally think, I was going to use a swear word then, I wouldn't do it. If someone else has been given a lift by other judges, I think the coach should go up and go, I don't think that was it. I think it's fine to try and overrule your own lifter's one if you think it was good.
Yeah.
But going up, it just doesn't sit right with me.
I think that has been removed now.
Is that actually gone now?
I think it's gone now. But I think it's distasteful. Like, I get it. And certainly at the highest level, you'd want to go and do it. But I think it's just distasteful. But would I do it? Yes.
I think it's absolutely outrageous. Would I do it? Of course I would.
Yes, I absolutely would. Yeah.
No, I don't think I would. Even if I didn't like the lifter, I don't think I would.
I think because I'd
have to really dislike them.
I would be so vested in that person that I was with at the time. I would disregard all of the things, provided it was allowed. Which, if it was, I'd be straight over.
How would you react if another coach did it to you? Would you say? Would you shake their hand and say fair enough?
Oh no, I wouldn't shake the hand. Secretly, I'd have respect for them, but I wouldn't show them the respect. I'd go, "Oh, that was annoying," but secretly, I'd go,
"That's outrageous."
Would
you have done it? Yeah.
I'd absolutely livid. I would have done the same thing.
That's fair enough. Yeah, no, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. And if a coach did it against me, I would think less of them. 100%. What do you think if you could give, let's say you've got a lifter and they're coming into their first ever comp. They've been training for a while. They've never competed. You don't want to overload them with information. Can you think of like a couple of key points that you would give to someone walking into their first comp? Let's just say it's like a novice comp at a local gym. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Definitely just chat to people. Like, it's such a lonely sport that then people, and certainly on their first comp or first couple of comps, they feel like they need to go there. Feels like this is certainly a newer thing now, is that they have to have someone to handle them. They have to have two mates come in the warm-up area with them. And like, they're like, well, if I don't have somebody to handle me, how am I going to load the bar? Because there's 14 other people in exactly the same situation as you. There are going to be enough bodies, and go and meet somebody, preferably somebody who's like a similar height. So they need to change the rack height, and then you can just work in with them. And like, that's so much better for people than taking their friends. Like, and I've said that to a lot of newer lifters, and they sometimes get a little bit taken aback if I say, I do online coaching, but that doesn't mean that I'm coming to handle you at your competition. And I know that now there's a lot of people who just kind of throw that in with their service, which seems crazy because they'll charge X amount for their time for monthly coaching. But I'll come and spend 9 hours on a Saturday and handle you for free. So like, it still should be charge time if it is a coach for that side of things. But also, if it's like at a divisional, I want people to go and experience it, get to mingle with other people. Because if you have those couple of people who are looking after you, you're less likely to mingle with everyone else. And that's what creates lasting lifters.
Yeah.
is because you've gone there and you're like, oh yeah, I remember at my first comp, like I met this guy, he was like super friendly, like I'm here now training. I came down to train with Kibria. We competed against each other in 2019, and if we hadn't have chatted then, would we have been as pally at subsequent competitions? Probably not. So that's super. I think that is really valuable. Is you're already going out of your comfort zone, so just do that a little bit more and force yourself into a situation to get chatty with people in the warm-up area rather than taking large groups of people.
I think as well, I agree with that. And it did used to be the fact that you didn't have a handler when you went to comps. When I started, obviously it's a long time ago now, but what you would do is you might take a mate and their job would be to spot you during the bench. But those were in the days where you can have a designated handoff person.
Handoff, yeah.
Obviously the IPF, it's all, so now there's not necessarily the reason to bring a mate to do that. You don't, like you said, if everyone's in the same situation, if people stopped bringing all their mates, it would make it better.
Yeah.
Because then more people would be in the same situation. Yeah. And most of the time, even at national competitions, but especially at divisional competitions, the warm-up rooms aren't massive, and there's not necessarily that many racks. And if you add more people in there that don't need to be there, it's just a pain for everyone.
Yeah, I think at the British Just Gone, they did quite a good job of stopping that.
So, in the past, they've said they were going to stop it, and no one ever did they? It was just never enforced.
But they did enforce it at the last British, which was really good. But also, like, you don't need a handler when you're not going to be jostling numbers for positions. And also, I made a video the other day about RPE and how sometimes people say, "Oh, I just don't get RPE." Go to a comp. Handle yourself, make those calls. Now you'll get it. Because what you think was RP7 and then you make a jump and now you miss it. Okay, cool. Now you know it probably wasn't 7. It was probably a little bit higher up the ranking. You will learn it. Okay, you learn it the hard way, but you will learn.
Yeah, no, I agree. I had a lifter, Archie, if he's watching this, he's a young lad. And it was annoying at the last comp we had here because I wasn't handling him, but I gave him his opener and a second effectively for everything and said, look, you use your own judgment on the third.
Nice.
And all of his 3 that he used for his last were far too heavy. Like they were terrible decisions, but he got all 3. And I was like, oh, he's not going to learn anything from that. Because he only just got all 3. And I was like, I mean, great for him, great numbers.
Well, he knows where 10 is.
He definitely knows where 10 is, but I was like, and my brother said they were all wrong as well, weren't they? I went, yeah, he did get them all. So it's going to be difficult to argue with him at the next comp.
That's good though, because now he can, he's hit the 10s, he can work backwards.
Yeah,
right, there's your limit. Now you know what, like.
But younger male lifters, it's an uphill battle because they always want to put more on. They're always going, in my experience, they're always going, I can do more than this. I know you can do more, but progressive overload means we don't have to lift 1 rep max every time we walk in the gym.
I might get myself cancelled, right?
Oh,
but
red lights going off in the room.
Girls that I train love overshooting their bench. Right, so you think it's boys. No. Girls. They'll send you like, oh, this is like at 7. You're like, it took you 13 seconds. It's probably not at 7. And then I'll go, you've already gone up and missed the next attempt, haven't you? Yeah. You go, oh, okay.
What do you think that's down to? Is it down to the fact there's not access to fractional plates in gyms? Could that be anything to do with it?
I think it's that, like on bench press, I think girls have to, more often than not, they have to rep closer to their 1 rep than a guy would for the equivalent weight. So like when I'm sharing a bench with Sab, our sets of 4s and 5s are almost the same. There's maybe, sometimes it is the same. And sometimes it's maybe like 2 kilo difference. But then in our 1 rep, there'll be a 20 kilo difference.
Yeah.
So like she'll have to rep so much closer.
They can do much more volume at a proportionally higher percentage of their 1 rep max.
Yeah. And so then when they're hitting a weight that they think is, say, RP7, they don't have as much of a fight left as we do. So a 1 RPE point is like 3%. But actually, if that girl's 1RM is 100k on bench, which is still enormous, that RPE point is actually more like 1.5%. So when you take it like that, okay, now we need the fractionals. And also, not enough people use fractionals.
No, I completely agree. Especially on bench press, even men. Like, only a kilo up. Yeah, but it's a kilo. If you add a kilo every week, rather than adding 2.5 missing, coming back down, adding 2.5 missing, coming back down, and not making any progress at all, which one do you prefer?
It's like add 1 or 2.5.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think it definitely is the case that with beginner lifters, it's similar. Beginner men and women, it's similar, isn't it? You can get beginner lifters who can do a lot quite close to their 1 rep max, partly because they haven't learnt the 1 rep max skill yet, and partly just because they are not as physiologically developed. Yeah, that's definitely true.
And actually, just circling back to things for your first comp, is squat and bench press is taking your breath after you've got on the command. So important. So wait until you've had the squat until you take your last breath.
I think that's nerves as well. People are trying to take their breath as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
They're trying to rush it rather than...
And like and the other thing as well is that how do you calm someone down in any situation is get them to focus on their breathing or to do something. So then by getting them to focus on their breathing, say, hey, listen, when you hear the squat command, after that is when you're going to take your last breath. So then prior to that, they can just kind of breathe as normal. So even if they're nervous, I think it helps them to chill out their nerves a little bit. So yeah, and then same on bench press is unrack it, but don't be like eager to go. Wait until you get the start, because once you've got that start, you can just lie there if you really want to. But there is definitely a thing where people hear those words and they're bum and they want to go.
I did a post on this a while ago about not training the start position. People in the gym in their training, they unrack it and start the first rep straight away. They almost don't lock the arms.
Yeah.
So they're never practicing hold, unrack, hold, unrack, hold. So when they then do have to hold it, they're screwed. Because they're losing tightness, going, hang on a minute. Then they get the start command and everything's sort of sunk down a bit.
Yeah, which is massive. Yeah. If their ribcage starts dropping,
because they've not got the isometric endurance to hold that position locked.
That's a good point. I'll have that.
All right, you can have that. It's not down on record. Oh, hang on a minute. Yeah. Do you have a problem with your lifters when you instruct them to keep the weight the same for following weeks or consecutive weeks?
Yeah. That is something that I quite like. Is I often say to somebody is try and think about you've got to earn the next week. And if you are doing a top set and a couple of back-offs, those back-offs can be the same week in, week out. Maybe not for too long, but they certainly can be for a while if your top set is increasing. And also if it's on bench press and you're benching multiple times a week, it doesn't matter if one of those is static. But we have this thing that we have to change something week to week.
Yeah.
And obviously with emerging strategies, it's very much you're not changing something week to week. You are, here's your week, do it again, cool. But outside of that, in almost any other programming strategy, it's you feel like you've got to change something. So I will very often have, if they're going to be benching, say 3 times a week, one of those may be static. May have a different on the top set, but one of them may be static. And certainly if it's somebody who, and this is probably through more learning from myself, somebody who picks up niggles like they're going out of fashion, you're then over time, because something is changing, your average volume is still going to be going up.
Yeah.
Like it might not be going up as much as you want it to, but you can still have something that's static. And then also it becomes, if you're going to have like, say, okay, your 3 threes are going to stay the same. For like the next 4 weeks, your 3 threes are going to stay the same, but your top double, that can change. It then places like more emphasis on that. Whereas if you see, week 4, my 3 threes are going to be 10 or 15 kilos heavier than week 1, you might start placing even more mental emphasis on that.
Yeah.
And then you're not kind of arriving for that top double in the same way that you maybe wanted to. So yeah, I quite like it. And there's also progress and progression. So if I've got 3 threes at 80%, by the time I get to week 4, it's 2 RP points lower. Well, I have definitely made some progression. And I'm not just progressing the difficulty of something.
Well, there is such a thing as training interference, isn't there? So if you're doing the same thing or similar exercises multiple times in a 1 week block, they're all affecting each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're increasing the recovery demand on Monday and then Wednesday and then Friday, by the time you get back to Monday again, your body's probably nowhere near where it should be.
Yeah.
Whereas if you put it up Monday and Wednesday and then Friday just stays the same, it's always allowing any of that extra fatigue to come back down a little bit.
Yeah,
whereas if you're just pushing everything up the whole time. And the other thing is, so obviously I use velocity with my lifters, so I can see objectively. So I will typically run 3-week waves where I'm not going to change their weight for 3 weeks. That's typically how I do it on their singles and their, let's say, triples on a different day. If on week 3 they're doing those singles faster, great, we put it up.
Yeah.
And if they're doing the last rep of that final triple, if that's got fast, they've earned the right to put it up.
Yeah.
If on week 2 of that wave it's shot up anyway, I'll cut the wave short and start a new one. So I'm not going to hold them back. So if their progress is straining to get away, I'll start a new.
Yeah.
But typically you're trying to do, and then you will often see 1 week won't be as great. You'll message a person, oh, yeah, I've had a terrible week this week. Been work, diet, all these other things. You go, well, yeah, you can objectively see in those numbers.
Yeah.
The week after it comes back and you're back on again.
Yeah.
I find that a lot around Christmas time with lifters as well, because their schedules are so messed up and everything's so messed up. You look at their velocities. If you can just keep them lifting the same weight through Christmas and then come into January and then you can start pushing them again, you're ahead then. They managed to get through that tricky time without going backwards or overloading.
Yeah. I think actually Christmas as well is quite a good time to think. And I was thinking about this on the drive here, was what days you do certain lifts and what days you train becomes way more important the stronger you get. And the more advanced you get. So how you separate that and what days they're going to land on, and can you oh, I've got a busy week, can I merge those sessions, and like today my plan was to merge Friday and Sunday session into Saturday. Like if I was like at 66, if I was squatting like 250 and deadlifting like 280, probably wouldn't advise doing that.
Yeah.
But with the level of my squat and my deadlift, yeah, well, you can kind of get away with it a lot more.
As your absolute load goes up, your recovery demands get more and more specific, don't they? So you need to be more and more careful.
Yeah. And when you were saying about doing, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we talk about having like, oh, this is kind of more like my recovery session. Like I was chatting with a lifter this week, just saying, just remember that nothing is for free. Like, it doesn't matter what you do other than sleep. Nothing is for free. So it all has some sort of recovery cost to it, even if it's your recovery squats. They're not recovering. To
be fair, if it was for free, there'd be no point doing it, would there? If this was having no physiological effect on you, why on earth would you be doing it in the first place? It'd be stupid. I have seen people's programs where the coaches put in benching 4 times a week. One of them's a tempo bench, and I look at the program and I honestly can't see why it's there.
Yeah, okay.
I'm like, is that doing anything on that day? Because it's super light, it's tempo. It's like, oh, it's my recovery bench. Would it be better if you just took that out
and then you recover more?
Yeah, I just don't know. Sometimes I think there are programs where they're trying to fill space more than anything else.
Definitely, like now, I don't know about you, but when I started, it was very much like you deadlifted once a week. And if you did more than that, you were a bit of a sadist.
Yeah.
Bench press, you did a little bit more, but it would tend to be, this was your comp bench. And then the other one would be like some sort of like max set on dumbbells or like close grip. And then squat would be like squat and then a front squat. Whereas now you get people like less than a year's training age and they're benching 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And when if I've got someone like that, I'll very much try to like, well, let's pull that down. Why are we putting that down? Is what I've been doing. Yeah, but if that's what you've been doing, it hasn't really gone anywhere. We got nowhere to go.
This is one of my biggest bugbears, and that's my
Where
answer.
are we going to go?
If we're already doing this much volume and it's not working, what are you going to do? You're in the gym 5 days a week for 2.5 hours. I've got no options here.
We've got nowhere to go up. Do you know Agatha supposedly does 6 SBDs?
I did hear
a
this,
week?
yeah.
I would love to know when. Like she's obviously incredible and has been training like a long time. But at what point did that become, okay, now we need to do 6 SBDs? Yeah. But also, if she's doing 6 SBDs and, you know, like for me, my GL is like 50% of hers. Well, I got no business doing 3 SBDs. like, I got no business being up that end of the scale. I think sometimes I equate it to caffeine. It's like, well, the more you do, the more caffeine you have, the more you need. Yeah. So, yeah, if you're gonna just add in a higher frequency and you make a little bit of progress, then to make more progress, you're gonna have to go up again.
There's like a volume sensitivity thing going on, isn't there? Where you need, and it takes more to do more. And what the first thing I will do with a client typically is reduce volume, just even if it's not that high, just to see.
Yeah.
And if their progress continues on less volume, amazing. All of a sudden, I've got an extra thing I can add back in again.
Yeah, and it feels like I think most people know that you want to do the least to get the most.
Yeah, you say that. I don't know if that's true though. I don't know. I've seen too many programs from too many coaches where that can't be true.
And that, well, I was going to say is sometimes I feel like you know it, and like, but then your lifter is super keen, and then you kind of have to go, okay, like you want to do more, like you really, really want to do more. I want you to do a bit less. So then we end up like meeting in the middle.
Yeah.
And your meeting in the middle is more so as a result of them paying you for a service, because you're like, I think this is going to be best, but you're not fully on board with me yet. So we'll have to meet in the middle.
I can't order you around.
Yeah. And so unfortunately you do that, but then you do that for like half a year, and then the other half of the year, now you've had to increase somewhere.
Yeah.
So definitely people need to learn to do less.
I think like that's rational. To me, the rational thing is I want to do the least I can to get the most possible gains to make me less likely to get injured, firstly. And secondly, to give me somewhere to go to improve. But I feel like some of the coaches or some things I've heard have been like, yeah, but you could be leaving gains on the table because you could be doing more and making more. Like it's like quite a short term. Mm-hmm. And the problem is if you're a coach who's charging for the service, I think there's a temptation to try and give your client fast gains because it looks better.
Yeah,
for your business as a coach, if the client's making fast gains, even if it isn't necessarily for the long-term benefit of that athlete.
Yeah, for sure. That makes total sense. And on that, I think when somebody arrives and they're not really like goal-driven in the sense of going, right, I want to sign up for coaching, I'm going to do this comp, and I want to hit this, this, and this. Those people will burn out a lot quicker than the people who are like, hey, I'm signed up for a comp, I want to do better than I did last time, and I want to work really hard to get there. They're going to last a lot longer because they're just so much more driven by the process of it than the outcome.
I feel that I can now, I've been doing it for so long, relatively early on in the relationship with the client, I can get a feel for what the trust level is from the client. And so if a client comes to me, so one of my favorite type of clients is someone who says, I've been going to the gym for ages and I'm thinking about competing. Because you've sort of got them early enough then that they haven't been like corrupted, I want to say. Don't know if that's like poisoned, corrupted. Oh, they're all bad words. Infected by all the bad ideas.
Yeah.
And like you can get them early on and say, look, I tell you what, yes, but let's not pick any numbers right now. Let's get you to the comp with good technique and not worry how much you lift. And if you can get them to buy in then, like those are the clients I've kept for the longest.
Yeah.
And they've seen steady gains because they're not killing themselves to Because you've got the opposite, is the client who won't compete until they can break a regional record.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, yeah, this is going to be tricky because...
And they're going to burn out really quick.
Yeah. And they'll get, a lot of the time, those are the ones that get injured because they're chasing that. And then if they're not going to beat the Southwest squat record, goodness sake, if they're not going to beat it, they'll go, oh, I'm not lifting now. What do you mean? Well, I'm not going to get the record because of that knee problem I had. I went, really? Yeah. But that is, I've heard that. Like,
yeah, you definitely need to be... I think if you look at like who is at the best and like what traits they have, right? Like Tony Cliff just uploaded videos of him in his garage any day of the week. He just loves being in there hitting the grind. Like there's a bit of a correlation between that and being the world's best.
Yeah.
Like just love the process and see what you can do and don't chase that outcome. And you don't know what you'll get.
Bobby's the same. She loves training.
She'll train him
right a session. Yeah, great, love it. I look at the session. I go, oh God, really? She comes back. Yeah, went great. Sends me the videos. I'm like, yeah, great.
Well,
like,
she trained comp or no comp. She'll still train, right?
So you just push it, and you just don't have to worry about. Like again, I know we have to be careful with what we say, but you can't. You're there as a coach. You're not a therapist. Now, some of the stuff we do sort of borders on a bit of therapy and helping people through it. But you can't do that for everyone. Like it's just like the amount of hours it would take to do that. You can't do that with every client. And there has to be, I'm going to be supportive and help you a bit, but you've got to take up some of the slack yourself and you have to face the fact that you wanted this. This is going to be quite hard. There's going to be times it's not working great.
Yeah. I do kind of, sometimes I'll go into that and I'll go, right, I'm going to step outside of my wheelhouse here. So take this more as friendly advice than professional advice, but I think you need to think this way kind of, this isn't professional advice, but,
I'm not a medical professional.
In that realm, no, I have experienced this, or I have worked with a lifter who's experienced this, and then maybe you can come at it from this perspective.
Yeah, it's hard because I think most of the time, most of the clients we like, and you do want to help them, and you have to realise sometimes you're not helping them. Some of the stuff you're trying to do for them, you're like, actually, this
I had
isn't
something with a client today. He had a tough session and he got a little bit emotional about it. And then a couple of hours later was like, ignore my emotional rant. And I was like, it's totally fine. Like we all get really bummed out about a bad session because I think most people make a bigger deal of the bad sessions than they do of the good sessions. So then those bad sessions just get highlighted. So what I did for him, which is kind of that then works really well, is just on a calendar, just mark on a calendar all of your sessions and you just highlight them green. And then the bad ones you highlight red and the really good ones you highlight gold. And you're like, okay, now zoom out and zoom out again. Now zoom out again. Can you see the red one? Or is it just like a sea of green? Yeah, it's mostly a sea of green. All right, cool. So now you know it's just like a blip. Yeah. Doesn't really matter. So I was trying to say to him through lived experience of being injured so many times, that's what gets me to cope. But I think that is one thing where you kind of like, hey, I'm stepping outside my wheelhouse here.
I think that's really good advice. I've not thought of it that way, but that's a really good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, so I do that for myself, as I have a spreadsheet with my calendar. And here's my sessions: green, 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 red, 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 green, 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 green. I go, oh, it doesn't look very good. Zoom out a bit further, it doesn't look so bad.
Yeah.
So, and I'm having to do that at the moment with this little shoulder niggle. Yeah. I'm going, oh no. But actually, I spent 4.5 months of last year not training because I nearly ended myself on the mountain bike twice. I still had the biggest year of progress I've ever had. And I think it's because it was one of the biggest years for me being into the process of training. So, and I didn't chase anything when I was trying to get back to it, but definitely zooming out on that made it a lot easier to cope with.
But yeah, being bummed out by a bad session really just means you care about it. So there's nothing really wrong with being a bit bummed out, is there? That's the other thing to say. Like you said, it's fine.
Yeah.
Be pissed off with it, because if you weren't pissed off, that's a little bit worse to some degree.
But really care.
But put that pissed off in perspective.
Yeah.
Be annoyed. Oh yeah, that was rubbish. And then go, but
actually,
Exactly.
yeah. And very often it's difficult to view the context of why it was bad.
yeah, there'll always be a reason.
Yeah.
There's always, and I remember having someone years ago, having someone in tears. And I said, why do you think that went badly? And she went, I don't know. I go, well, what's your last week been like? Oh, it's been terrible. It's like, and she's reeled off all this stuff. I went, bad sessions don't come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They come out of something. You
Something
just have to think, oh, yeah, okay. All right, fine.
Yeah.
I won't come into the gym at 4 o'clock having not eaten all day. As I've had, people do stupid stuff, don't they?
Yeah.
Things like that. Have you had anything to drink today? No, nothing. No.
Oh, I had a cup of tea.
Yeah, like, are there any lifters that you've come across as part of that? Could be from other nations or just from GB, who you like would point out as like pinnacles to aim for? Not necessarily that they were like the best lifters, but just the way they
conduct themselves.
exactly the way they conduct themselves, the way they lift, like how they warm, like everything. Part of it.
I would say Christian's probably very close to that. Like his
Christian Irondoken.
Yeah. So, he's never held himself back. He's never let a weight category hold himself back, which is definitely something that like a lot of good people they could be very, very good, but actually if you just moved up a category, you could be great. Ade is a good example of that. Like great at 74, but knew he had even more to give to go to 83, and here he is ready to go to Sheffield with a world record already. I'd say, yeah, Christian's probably like that because A, he hasn't held himself back like that. B, his standards are 99% awesome. There's been a couple of moments where it might not have, but he's never, can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you can.
He's never bitched about it.
Yeah.
He's gone, I'll fix that.
Do you remember when his passport expired at Euros?
Yes.
And he told me like 2 days before. And I remember I was handing someone and my WhatsApp pinged and I looked down and I could see it was from Christian and I could see the first line was like, my passport's expired. I turned my phone off, put it back on my pocket, went, I haven't got time to deal with this right now. I'm going to finish handling this lifter and then move on to whatever shit show is awaiting me.
Yeah. So
that's the one time I point out when Christian was like,
whoop. Right.
He still got there though.
Yeah,
it was funny because he arrived at the hall we were in Lithuania, weren't we? Lithuania, without any of his lifting gear, and he walked up to the SPD table, picked all his stuff off the SPD table, walked to kit check, which was already open,
ready to go,
and handed it, and they looked at it. It was still in the plastic wrapper, and they were like, yeah, that's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You've not even opened it yet. And the bloke was just laughing.
But why I think he is that he doesn't fret, doesn't stress, doesn't panic, doesn't bitch and moan. He's gone up in weight categories to maximize like his potential of that. Yeah, and
that was nuts.
Actually, I was going to say, I said to him how different he is now, because as a 74, it was like at Lithuania, he was just this unbelievably strong. Like, I think he was like, as 74, he's like maybe squatting 230, 240. I think it was about maybe 240. But you didn't know if he was just going to squat it at RP6 or it fell off his back. Yeah. It'd be one or the other.
But he was like squeezing into that weight class, wasn't he? That was not.
That was, So, he definitely made the right choice there. But yeah, that kind of ethos of like not fretting, not worrying, just he gets on with it, and you can see he loves the process, but he's also very good, I think, in terms of what maybe people who are very good should strive to be like, is that he's very good at what I call like tempering the flames. Like, you won't see him like YOLO something in the gym because he had a day where it felt good. He'll go like, today feels pretty good. I've taken what was there, and I'll take what's that little bit, that 3% extra. I'll take when I need it. And then if you can temper the flames and take them when you need it, that's super good.
The thing is, people obviously not a lot of people listening to this or watching this won't have met him, but he's just he's quite level-headed guy, and you talk to him, he's not losing his mind. It's just very controlled.
Or at least externally, he's very calm.
Yeah.
I mean, internally, he could be going absolutely crazy at Euros and Worlds and being like panicking.
I mean, I don't know how he's going to be handling endurance tomorrow. He might be.
That'll probably be his most nervous competition
That'll be worse.
of all time.
Yeah, that'll be worse than lifting.
Yeah.
Because you've got, as the handler, you have a very small amount of control to the point where if anything goes wrong, you're like, well, I mean, it's effectively my fault and I couldn't do anything to stop it.
And I used to say to people about like coaching at or handling at Euros and handling at Worlds is way more nerve-wracking than doing your own lifting. Because if something goes wrong, it's not just going wrong for you. And if it does go wrong for you, you messed up for you. Don't worry about it. But yeah, handling at Euros and Worlds is like way more nerve-wracking. But that's also why we do it, right?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't if it wasn't nerve-wracking and you didn't care, you wouldn't be there.
No, 100%.
Type 2 fun.
Because it's you just the fact that it's difficult is why you're trying to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the joy of doing it, because otherwise you don't get that rush.
Yeah.
And obviously neither of us knows what it's going to be like doing it in Sheffield tomorrow, but it's going to be different. Like it's going to be weird, but that's what we're all aiming for. What else is there to aim for other than coaching at Sheffield as a coach? It doesn't get any higher than that, does it? So
no,
if you can't get up for doing that, then you're definitely in the wrong job. You definitely shouldn't be doing it. But I know, I won't name names, but as an international coach, I've worked with lifters who, if you make a mistake, like I've made a mistake handling lifters before, and I've said, I'll hold my hands up, I got that wrong. And I've known lifters who go, that's fine. I've known other lifters who will take it personally, which is still all right. But what I didn't like was when, as a handler, I didn't make a mistake. The lifter messed up, and then the lifter blamed me. Yeah, that didn't happen very often, but it did happen. And I'd be like, look, I mean, if this is the way it's going to go, fine, but it's not really very fair. And it's like you need to have a real look at yourself, because you need to take responsibility for what just happened.
I'm quite big on people not videoing too much of their training.
I agree.
Which is because
there's times when you need it.
Yeah.
Fine.
And times when you need it is when you're handling somebody who you've never met and you go, hey, like, show me like your heavier stuff so we've got an idea of where you're going to go. And they show you like a single at 80% and they're like, oh yeah, but we could probably add 20 to my top end. And you're like, oh yeah, but okay, but you're showing me something that's like 50 kilos away. Like, oh.
It doesn't look that easy.
So yeah, they're like difficult conversations where you're like, well, you want to end here, but like you've only gone to that point in training. And I'm very much somebody who you do not express your maximum capacity in training. Absolutely not. You'll go somewhere near it. Just to give you an idea of like, you know, do you start cutting depth when you hit like 95%? Or you just...
If you need to do your 1 rep max in training, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You shouldn't need to do it.
No.
You should be able to. So I would say most of the time, if you go, the heaviest I'd get someone to go is to their second attempt in a comp. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, I don't really get anyone. I can't think of the last time I got someone to go heavier than that. I don't think I ever have. And that should be enough. They should move well.
Yeah.
It can slow down a bit. Fine. But you should never be breaking down with it.
Yeah. It should be second, maybe somewhere between second and third I think that's where my third will be. And you want to touch something in between. Again, certainly like heavier benches may want to do that because there might be a quicker drop off. Cool. It's fine. But don't touch the third. But also have some sort of like footage of it and not just footage of like, oh, here's a set of 6 I did. You're like, that's going to be really difficult for us to kind of really figure out your top end if that's all we got to go on.
The other thing I say, when I was the GB head coach, if I had a lifter I hadn't worked with before, my advice would always be, so I don't like lifters watching videos of their attempt before they decide on their next attempt.
Yeah.
So what I don't like is lifters coming off after their first going, can you show it to me? No. If you need to look at the video, we got problems here. When you walk off that platform and come to me as your handler, give me your gut instinct. Mm-hmm. Just tell me what you think. I might push something back at you and go, well, let's just do, but I want because often they'll get up and they'll go, that was harder than I thought.
Yeah.
And then you go, right, so we're going to just adjust the plan a bit now.
Yeah.
But what they shouldn't have to do is go, that was harder than I thought. Can I just look at the video? What? No. It's not going to help at this stage.
So I like saying to people, we need to forget what you're lifting. Don't care if it's 100, 200, 300. Do it how many extra, like, you need to then think, what have you got? Like, do you feel like that attempt was you'd add 10 if you were in the gym? Or if you were in the gym, would you add 5? Because if you think of that, you can forget about the absolute load and instead just think about what's the extra you feel you could have added to it. Because definitely sometimes you'll get clouded by, well, I really wanted like 225.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
I really wanted
go in
4
with
reps.
they've got the number in their head first, and you like you said, you need to be divorced from that, because
Yeah.
if you're something like Sheffield is one of the exceptions where you might have to go for the world record, whether it's like because there's no point being there.
Yeah.
That's a bit different. That is like once in a lifetime situation. 99% of comps, that's not what you're
other than
going for.
Arnold is the only one with a monetary reward, right?
Yeah.
So
you're not picking the number unless it's the last deadlift, and then that's sort of a handler's job at the end of the day, not the lifter's job.
yeah,
it
unless
should
the last
be anyway.
deadlift going to be for placing.
Yeah.
But for the rest of
even then, it's the handler's job to say this is what you need.
yeah. So for most of the lifters there this weekend, their third attempts are choosing themselves, unless there's going to be a couple of them doing the same.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird comp, Sheffield, in that way, isn't it? It's quite like preparing for it as a coach. It's a completely different mindset.
You need to make a new spreadsheet.
I did. So my brother Alex did a spreadsheet for. It's not as for us and Bobby. It's not as much a thing because
the top end.
Yeah, we know what we're going for. We've got a plan. Obviously, I know the plan, and we're going to pretty much stick to that. I can't see anything pushing us off that. But the people who are paying for the upper places,
yeah,
there's a lot of mental spreadsheet calculation, all sorts of percentages. It's always shifting because all the numbers are changing on people's attempts.
Yeah, and because it's all based on a percentage, you're going to have a sheet that works out percentages rather than a GL.
It's percentages and it's multiple weight classes combined as well, isn't it? It's everyone is against everyone. I think with this type of comp, you can't really be a revisionist and look back and, well, handler should have picked that.
Yeah.
When you've had a week to look at it, I think, yeah, you've got to give him a bit of a break. He's got 60 seconds to make, or they've got 60 seconds to make that call. And they're trying to watch that screen, what's going on out there. How hard was their second attempt? I mean, there's mistakes are going to get made in that situation, and you're going to have to give them a bit of a break.
I do think that Shell is going to completely ruin it for the 66 kilo class for a long time. Maybe forever.
Do you remember when Christoph Wisbicki was the 93 kilogram guy, the Polish guy? And I remember him pulling a deadlift, and one of our lifters going, well, he's just ruined the deadlift for the next 10 years because he was pretty much right. No one got near it for ages.
Yeah, a long time. Yeah.
It was just because it was so insane.
Did he not have 105 as well?
Yeah, maybe. It was 93 and 105. He used to bounce between and just destroy that deadlift world record. And people are like, oh, well, that's ruined it, hasn't it? But now, obviously, people have broken it. Thank you very much for your time, Jake.
It's been a pleasure.
Let's hope this weekend goes well for both of us. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you want to hear more conversations like this one, please consider subscribing.